But if you look at it, this is beautiful. How it's taking, how it's growing. You see this vigor here. You have 6 feet of. See how it's growing?
But do you ever cut the leaf so it can get more
Later,
sun?
once the canopy is developed enough, they'll cut these about here, and then they'll start thinning out. This is still too early. When you get to veraison is when they start turning some of them purple. That's when you start building, cutting everything out, dropping fruit.
What are these holes on the floor?
Gophers, animals.
Do they eat the grapes?
They could eat the, that's why this is higher. If the drip irrigation is on the floor, they could eat this and chew up and make leaks all over because they want water. So when there's water, they'll chew in to make a hole, and then you'll have it running all over.
I see.
Want to cross over? We'll go down a different row. So this is Cabernet, and there's a whole bunch of different clones of Cabernet. You see this vine? There's no way that if we leave this like this, that this is all gonna ripen. You see how many bunches you have here? It's just way too much fruit. 1, 2, 3. There's actually more. So they're gonna come in and go through this and drop a whole bunch of fruit to make sure. Again, this is what it's. I told you this last time. This, what we look at, the leaves. These are the solar panels, right? So this is the solar panel that attracts the sun, that gives the energy down to the fruit. So if it's, let's say, a short one, if this is, take this one. This is too short. There's not enough solar panels to get a bunch of grapes ripe. So you take this, they'll leave this, but they take the fruit and they'll drop the fruit. Depends on the canopy. If you have a big enough canopy, they'll open up here because you'll get enough sun and you won't burn them. A lot of them like to open it. A lot of farmers like to open up the canopy early so the grapes get used to the sun and it doesn't get sunburned. It's like people that come from the Middle East, from Israel. They don't get sunburned like we do because we're not used to it. So the same thing with the grapes. If you open it all up early, then it's a different shit. Every grower has every area. By the way, every area before we plant, we dug pits in every area. The soil, you think because it's one open area that the soil is the same. The soil is different.
So that's how you decide.
You decide what rootstock. What rootstock? You know what the rootstock is?
What grapes are going to grow there?
No, rootstock. So if you look in the bottom, you can see it here. This one is a good example. See, this what's growing out over here is not. This is the rootstock. The rootstock is basically harkova. This is what's called a green vine that doesn't give fruit, which is basically ilan zuchar.
Okay.
And then, so you pick the best rootstock that is good for this soil, if there's the nematodes, there's different things going on, there's certain grapes, the same thing that are used to that do better in different areas. And then on top of that, you put on the clone,
how do you
the Cabernet.
How do you
graft it. You cut it in, you put in. It's the whole thing of how you graft it. And that's how it's done.
Interesting. So what do you enjoy more, being in the winery, in the barrel room, or in the vineyards?
So I have to say it's two different things. It's for me.
Because I want to pause for a second. I know Moti very well, apart from him always being in the winery and talking about food and actually explaining wines to people, and he enjoys it so much, and the barrels and doing the blends and talking to the winemakers. I come here.
But we all had gardens in Niger, in Mount Kisco. We all had gardens that we planted every summer.
I used to steal tomatoes from Mr. Schwartz's garden.
You had apple, tabak. Who had?
No, Bauer had a garden, and Mr. Schwartz had a garden. We used to steal tomatoes.
Didn't the apples have a huge garden in their back?
Not in my time. Maybe. Okay. So here I am in the vineyards with Moti, and he's so passionate. I'll start even when Moti was young. He was passionate about building stuff. You built a tasting room in Marlborough, New York. Okay. And in the winery, he's so passionate. How do you?
So I'll tell you. So I've learned. To me, this has all been a learning curve. And I learned first with Joe, was obviously in the vineyard. Although I moved out here exactly now 18 years ago in July. The first thing, 2 days after I moved out to California,
18 years.
18 years,
So
2 years
we worked together
in Marlboro,
22 years ago.
So the first thing we did,
20, yeah.
2 days after I moved out, I went on a road trip with Peter Stern and Joe Hurleman to the
Peter
vineyards.
Stern, the legend.
It was for 3 days. All we did, we started from Oxnard, so we went to Santa Barbara, Paso Robles, Lodi, Clarksburg, the whole.
You thought it's all Cadem wine, like Blanc
And we
Chablis
went
or Red Chablis?
no, so that was my first thing, and I got to understand the vineyards. Even with Joe, I used to come up and get an understanding. And Joe was very detailed, but David is a whole new level in the vineyards. David is here once.
To those who don't know, Joe was the old winemaker.
Joe Hurleman, actually, his yard side is coming up next week.
And this is his...
This black next one, not this one. The next one is Joe Hurleman was here to buy when we bought the vineyard. We came together to look at it and to explain, to do the research and to see if it makes sense or not. Joe Hurleman, oh, that's the owner, the neighbor. Joe Hurleman was a real mensch. He had the Yiddish neshama. He had the Yiddish neshama, and he was a dedicated, ambitious winemaker.
So we're going to do a wine label. You're going to do a wine label in honor
coming from his block.
Yeah,
From his block, we'll do something.
very nice.
But so Joe was in the cellar in the winemaking. And he always used to say, "If you give me great grapes, I can make a great wine. You give me good grapes, I could try and make it a very good wine. But if I have bad grapes, I could maybe make a mediocre wine, or I could try to make it somewhat, but it won't be the best wine that I can make it, because it all has to do with the work and what's done in the vineyard."
So that's what he
So
taught
Joe
you.
always said it. And Joe, we used to come out every once in a while. When we hired David Galzignato, the new winemaker, David came to a whole different. So David comes from Napa. He grew up, as he says, cut his teeth in Napa Valley. He knows Napa Valley on the palm of his hand. Anywhere, I'll tell him I'm going. He says, "No, you're doing wrong. You're going like everywhere, up, down, south." He knows every detail, every road, every vineyard, the history, the whole. This is his Messiah. Is everything in here. And he says 80% of the work is done in the vineyard. 80% of the work is done in the vineyard. So he's the one, and we'll show you. He's the one that introduced the moisture probes and all of these companies coming and checking just of the vines and the health of the vines and the stress of the vines and all that, because that's what it comes. And that's what we did as a family. We made a decision: do we bring just any winemaker, do we find a great winemaker from Cicero anywhere and bring him here, or do we want to get someone that knows and lives and breathes Napa? This is his thing, and we made the decision to bring someone that lives and knows. Yes, he doesn't know kosher. Yes, he doesn't know Shabbos. Yes, he doesn't know the kashrus. He doesn't know any of that. We'll go through the growing pains of that, but to get someone that is the best in the industry. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did over here. So here, first of all, here you could see, this is Cabernet Sauvignon, Clone 8, on top of a rootstock, which is SO4. That's the rootstock. That's the spacing. So over here, this area is 4.23 acres. The spacing is 7x4, planted in 2021.
You've done a beautiful job. I hope your cousins are talking to you now.
Now too much, maybe.
Guys, we'll see you in the next vineyard.